Okay, so this video is about the evolution of SpaceX's Starship. In order to really talk about the Starship, we kind of have to ask why. Why is this vehicle even being built? Some of you are saying, well, it's a Mars ship. You know, they're building it to go to Mars. Okay, but how did that happen in the first place? Well, we need to go back, way back, to even before the year 2000. Elon Musk actually was on the NASA website. It's actually an excellent website. There's all kinds of great stuff there. But the thing that was missing at the time was any plans of going to Mars. There wasn't really any big exploration goals as far as space was related at all. So Elon, having had made hundreds of millions of dollars in the sale of PayPal and other companies, thought that he might be able to do kind of a philanthropic mission. And he had an idea of, I think he called it Mars Oasis. And the idea was to somehow get a farm that would incorporate some Martian soil and grow some plants on Mars. And maybe the images of these plants would inspire the public to take more of an interest in space. So Elon actually, not until 2001, did he actually go to Paris in an attempt to purchase a rocket off of Arianespace, which is the European Space Agency there. Unfortunately, even Elon at that time could not really afford the prices that Arianespace was charging, so they suggested that he go to Russia. Turned out that Elon was in talks with Russia. He went back and forth there a couple times, and he was going to get this rocket for about $21 million for this ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. He was going there to make the deal. He thought going to buy the free rockets for $21 million. But then the Russians were saying, no, it's going to be $21 million a piece. And he needed multiple rockets to complete his mission, his idea of getting that farm basically to Mars. So this wasn't really going to work. And they actually insulted him, saying, oh, little boy, you don't have the money. And kind of, they didn't really take Elon seriously, which actually was one of the best things that could happen for humanity. Because Elon, on his flight back from Russia that time, decided he was going to start his own space company, creating SpaceX. He brought together a bunch of great engineers and they built an orbital rocket. It took them 4 attempts and they built the Falcon 1. And that was 2008. 2008 that the fourth Falcon 1 actually went into orbit. NASA actually gave them a big contract to develop a ship to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. And the rest is essentially history. SpaceX took that money and they made good. And they have been delivering cargo to the International Space Station for years now. And they have delivered astronauts to the International Space Station. And they have also basically taken over the space industry. They are now leading the charge by far. They have the only reusable rocket in the workhorse Falcon 9, which really is an amazing vehicle. It is the only vehicle that can go to orbit and come back and land on Earth. The trouble with the Falcon 9 is it's not fully reusable. The booster is reusable, which is actually the most expensive part. It's got 9 engines. The second stage only has 1 vacuum-rated Merlin engine in the Falcons. Falcon rockets have the Merlin engine, and as we'll find out, the Starship has the Raptor engine, which I have a diagram on in my shirt here. You can't just be throwing away your rockets all the time and think that's going to save, or that's going to be an efficient way to do things. So Elon wants to make a fully reusable system. And actually he first started talking about colonizing Mars back in 2007, and that they would need some sort of vehicle, a serious vehicle, a big vehicle, something new to make this happen. So talking about it all the way back in 2007. In 2012 then, he actually unveiled the first kind of design idea for this vehicle. At that time it was going to be a 12-meter diameter. It's since dropped down to just 9 meters. 9 meters is 29.5 feet, by the way. So the first system that he had envisioned was the Mars Colonial Transporter. They started developing the Raptor Engine. Can't quite get that on there. They started developing the Raptor Engine in 2014. They were trying to build this. So the Raptor Engine is a very special engine, full flow staged combustion cycle, and it's actually a closed cycle engine. The Raptor is, well, it is the only engine of its kind to ever fly. Now, the Russians did try to fly a closed cycle combustion, so full flow staged combustion with a closed cycle on the N1 rocket, which actually exploded 4 times, and they scrapped the program. It seems that SpaceX has got the handle on this beast, and they have this extremely efficient engine. So that's the thing about the Raptor. It is very efficient. It doesn't waste any fuel like every other rocket engine does. We have the pre-burner, which is basically the pressurization for the main rocket engine, is a mini rocket engine, and it just dumps fuel like crazy. For its tiny little size compared to the main combustion chamber, it's wasting a huge amount of fuel, and it's just being dumped over the side of the rocket basically after it goes through pre-burner. And not with the closed cycle engine though. The trouble with the closed cycle engine is that it should be very, very hot. How can you have that inside your engine with all these tight tolerances and stuff like that? How can your metals survive this sort of heat? Well, SpaceX has figured out a way, and the Russians did figure out a way back when. Of course, they didn't get the chamber pressure that the Raptor engine gets today. So that's the Raptor engine. It started development in 2014. In January 2015, Elon announced that he had a whole new architecture that he wanted to talk about. The previous version, they were talking about maybe doing 3 boosters, kind of like the Falcon Heavy, 3 boosters with 9 engines apiece, which is actually what happens with the Falcon Heavy. The Falcon Heavy, though, using Merlin engines, this Mars Colonial Transporter was supposed to be all Raptor engines because they burn methane, which is it's going to burn very clean, so they don't have the coking problem they do with the kerosene fuels or the rocket fuels that JP1 that we use. You can get methane on Mars. You can't get kerosene on Mars. That's a kind of an animal byproduct, really. It's a byproduct of biology, so it can't be obtained on Mars as far as we know. Not until 2016, though, did the new architecture for the Mars rocket come out. It was suggested to be called the Interplanetary Transport System. It can do more than just go to Mars. So kind of a new tactic trying to sell this vehicle here on Earth. So they started calling it the BFR, Big Falcon Rocket. The Big Falcon Rocket was like a code name for it though. That's not the actual, that wasn't going to be the final name. They were saying they were still looking for a name. So they started calling it BFR for years actually. They called it BFR. Elon actually tweeted on Twitter suggesting that maybe we call it the Millennium. Some other names come up. They were saying back in 2016 that it should be operation perhaps 2020 or later. They'd actually have this rocket ready to go, hoping to depart to Mars as soon as 2024. The first Raptor engine was actually test fired in September of 2016. At this point, they were actually testing these large carbon fiber structures as far as trying to make them to be this fuselage of the rocket. They sent a big carbon fiber fuselage out onto a aircraft carrier and tested it out in the ocean because they were afraid the thing was going to be a big bomb. So it was called, this is called pre-preg carbon fiber. So it has they actually impregnate it with other like stitching fibers, and it's just like woven carbon fiber, which is actually really hard to make and really hard to make into a gigantic rocket structure. Very expensive as well. And in July of 2017, Elon tells us that the architecture of the rocket had evolved quite a bit. This was to make the vehicle more suitable for Earth orbit and cislunar launches. So being around Earth and having to do with the moon. So in 2017, more of a cislunar orientation for this rocket system. And that way the rocket could pay for itself before even going to Mars. New names, kind of an interplanetary spaceship for crew transport, and a tanker. ITS tanker would be the orbital refueling portion of this rocket. It would have grid fins, just like the Falcon 9, because the booster's returning just like the Falcon 9 does. Both stages of the rocket would be powered with the Raptor. They decided that both the first and second stage was going to be run with the Raptor engine. So they still were talking about the booster being 12 meters in diameter. So that's the better part of 40 feet. I'm not exactly sure, but roughly 40 feet in diameter, and it would be powered by 42 Raptor engines at that point. There would be 42 Raptor engines in the booster, but actually that's changed as the Raptor engines have become more powerful as they test them. It's been becoming less and less. By September of 2017, so a year after the first testing of a Raptor engine, they had now tested 42 Raptor engines, but the test duration was limited to just 100 seconds because they didn't have enough fuel at their test facility facility to test longer duration fires of the Raptor engine. Early in 2018, the first carbon composite structure was under construction, and they were building permanent production facility for the 9-meter vehicle at the Port of Los Angeles. So in 2018, it dropped down to an idea of a 9-meter diameter rather than the 12-meter diameter previously. April of 2018, 40 SpaceX employees were working on the BFR project, and they were expecting it to be more like 700 in the coming years. August of 2018, the U.S. military became interested in the BFR because they liked the idea of being able to launch 100 tons of payload to anywhere in the world in a half hour. That would be pretty cool for the military. They would like that. So they showed interest. They didn't really spend any money. In September of 2018, the Dear Moon project came on, and actually, so this entrepreneur from China, this Chinese entrepreneur actually gave SpaceX a great deal of money, billions of dollars, or more than $1 billion, to build this rocket. So basically paying for Starship, because this person wants to take 8 artists basically and do some orbits around the moon. And so, yeah, so that's the Dear Moon project. That's supposed to be happening in 2023. So the new system then, after that point, after September of 2018, becomes named the Starship and the Super Heavy Booster, collectively called the Starship as well, which is a little bit confusing. So the Starship is the top portion. The whole thing is called the Starship, but the bottom part is called the Booster, Super Heavy Booster. May 2019, Starship goes back to a 6-engine design, which it kind of changed between different things, but the actual second stage Starship itself has 3 sea-level Raptor engines, which are much smaller, and then it has 3 of the vacuum Raptor engines. And really, it's only smaller, so they're basically the same size engine. It's just a larger bell on the vacuum engine. They have to have a huge bell on the vacuum engine in order to prevent actually just like runaway blowback with the flame. It could actually catch the rocket on fire. If you were using a sea-level Raptor in space, it could actually catch fire. You need more pressure. And as I said, as Raptor performance has increased, the number of engines has dropped all the way down to 28 now, although they did suggest they might actually go up to 33. And on December 8th, 2018, Elon actually announced that they would be switching to stainless steel because, well, actually it does very well at cryogenic temperatures, and it can handle a lot more heat than carbon fiber can. And actually it's also way cheaper, and it turns out it's really just as light when it comes down to it, because there's a lot of things they don't have to account for that they would have to do with the carbon fiber. The carbon fiber would have to have very thick heat shielding for re-entry, and just a myriad other problems, supply chain issues with the carbon fiber. Basically, nobody had ever made anything like this with carbon fiber, and so logistically it was essentially impossible. So they decided to go with stainless steel, like I said, in 2018. In December 2018, the Mark 1 Starship was unveiled. So the first kind of looks like a Starship, looks like what we know now as a Starship, was unveiled, although it didn't do anything, really. It ended up blowing up, I think. So April 3rd of 2019 was the first static fire of the Starhopper vehicle. So kind of the test prototype actually had a Raptor engine in it. This was the first vehicle with a Raptor engine in it. And August 27th, this is the first flight ever with a closed cycle engine. Again, the Soviets did have a closed cycled engine that they were building for the N1. That vehicle blew up, so it doesn't count as flying. Blew up 4 times. As of August of 2019, the Mark 1 Starship was built in Boca Chica, Texas, but they were also building Mark 2 Starship in Cocoa, Florida. And then they were also building Mark 3 a little bit later, they're building Mark 3 in Boca Chica. A little bit later than that, they were building the Mark IV in Cocoa, Florida. But now everything is pretty much traded over, and everything is going on in Boca Chica, Texas, which has been renamed as a city to Starbase. And now SpaceX has been getting a huge boost in their funding actually from Starlink. So Starlink is doing very well for SpaceX. They are literally raking in billions at this point, and they're diverting all that into the Starship program. So the Starship is going to be lifting Starlink satellites before anything else. That's what it will be doing. It'll be bringing 400 satellites at a time, more than likely. There has been a lot of prototypes tested, and it is SN20 that is supposed to be used for the orbital launch here in the next few weeks, really. Well, I guess it's the next couple months. So Elon feels confident that's going to be in January. Elon's timelines, well, we'll see. I would say probably more like March is a good guess. But that's the Starship giant vehicle. It's going to be 9 meters, or it is 9 meters, and it's about 400 feet tall when stacked on top of the super heavy booster. Its whole purpose is really to transport humans to Mars. That's Musk's view for this. Although the vehicle itself is going to be a huge asset for humanity because we can use it to accomplish other goals as well. The James Webb Telescope is going up here pretty quickly. It would have been better if it could have been put up in a Starship. The constraints on that telescope would have allowed it to be a bigger, more powerful telescope. There's going to be a lot more possibilities when you have a fully reusable rocket that you can get up there for. You can get things into space for very cheap with a fully reusable gigantic rocket. So scale is a big deal. You do want to have a larger vehicle if you can, because kind of the brains of the rocket, the guidance systems and stuff like that, they all stay the same size no matter how big the rocket is. So you kind of gain a little bit as you get a larger rocket. It's just more economical. It's cheaper to launch a much larger rocket than it is a smaller rocket, pound for pound, especially if your rocket is efficient. So that's it. That's the Starship. Really looking forward to this orbital launch coming up. Get your feedback. Let me know if I missed something. I messed up on some of those details. Perhaps you could look them up. They should be pretty close to the facts. I've been following it pretty closely. But yeah, thank you for watching, and please let me know what aspects of space development you'd like me to go into more detail on. I'm happy to do that research and come back with the answers. So thank you for watching.